Before we get in the program, Holly, it's time for this week's Joke of the Week.
Yeah, so joke of the week. What part of the plant has the most friends?
I have no idea.
The bud.
Because he like buddies.
Yeah.
This week's joke is brought to you by Rescue.com.
Rescue.com. American-made products keep your family, home, and yard protected from pests, insects like wasps, hornets, yellow jackets, flies, ants, and more. Learn more at Rescue.com. That's RESCUE.com.
Trellising.
Yeah, let's talk about trellising.
Trellising, it's any device that allows a plant to grasp onto, climb up, and get itself off the ground. Many vegetables, and in some instances fruit, produce twice as much produce when they are trellised than when they are not, because the fruit or the vegetable lays on the ground and insects, bugs, mold, wetness sets in and damages the plant in which, or the fruit in which you're harvesting, or the vegetable. So a trellis, again, can be anything. It can be beautiful. You can pay a lot of money for a trellis, or it can be not very pretty at all, but be extremely functional. Example, you can go to the big box store, Holly, and buy a trellis for $80, a lattice iron trellis, and make it look real nice. Or you can go in the back 40, burn the fabric off your box spring, bring that in the garden, put 2 fence posts on it, and grow cucumbers up it. Very extreme on both ends.
Yeah, I was going to say that's very extreme on both ends, but yes, that's correct. You can also even just, somewhere in the middle, whether you do something where you use a found object and you maybe perhaps make something like we've done things with Christmas wreaths, the wire part, whatever you want to call it, the ring, and then we've strung up beans to the top of a pole, or not beans, string to the top of a pole all the way around, and made like this bean pole trellis, and you can, do an image search on that bean pole trellis. So you can get creative, and you don't have to have a box spring in your backyard. Some people even just get creative with some twine and some strings across 2 fence posts. You can also consider things like maybe you have some kind of busted up tomato cages. You can use those as trellises.
Works for peas. Well.
Yeah, works for peas. Maybe you have some old fencing or chicken wire, whatever. You can certainly use that too.
And it's still an okay thing if you drive around the evening before the morning of junk day. In the nicer areas, you will find some very nice, very well less used items, anywhere from bookshelves to dressers to radial arm saws to table saws to trellises to cages and anything in between. As long as you're very nice and you pick it up in a timely manner, get in the vehicle, drive away. Don't be the bandit and burn out and all that. Yeah. I got my dresser.
Right. So you can get creative. You can.
Have you noticed that stuff only appears in the nicer neighborhoods? Because I'm going to clarify, people who are in the average or maybe below average neighborhoods, they don't throw anything out because they can find a use for everything.
I mean, yes and no. I think that people in the middle to lower income brackets, it's not that they don't throw anything out, but maybe they just
wear it out.
Yeah, they wear it out. Yeah. I know, like growing up, we had hand-me-downs and definitely used things until it was like definitely worn out. And I know that you and I do that as much as possible.
And then we fix it and use it again.
Yes. But also there is especially if you're on social media, there's a lot of groups called Buy Nothing groups, or even just like the little neighborhood, whatever groups. So you can always look there for whatever it may be gardening related. I know our cat, I'm going to have to switch his cat food, and I'm probably going to either donate his unused cat food, whatever you want to call it, to a local rescue, whatever, or post it in the Buy Nothing group. So,
well, back to the trellising conversation, easier to harvest. You don't have to get on the ground, you don't have to bend over, and you can see that the cucumbers are ready to harvest, and there's not one hiding there, and by the time you realize it, it's almost yellow in the size of an NFL football. So, and for you have difficulty in seeing the color in pole beans, green. Yeah. So by getting them vertical, you are able more to identify.
I'm able to miss them more.
Them more.
Easily.
But you're able to see them hanging down.
I can differentiate between the leaves and the beans. Usually I don't always get them all, but yeah.
Right, but it makes it a lot easier than you're bending down all the time or getting on your knees. And for people with mobility issues, you can get down. Everybody can get down. It's getting that back up is becoming an issue as you get older in some instances.
Absolutely.
And that's the benefit of potentially a higher raised bed where it's like 24 or 36 inches high, where it's almost waist high. Though it takes a lot more filler, the long-term benefits of it is a higher rate of enjoyment. Easier to see problems. What does that mean?
It means like pests, disease, anything like that, where you may not say you have some sort of pest, whether it be like a potato. You're not going to necessarily trellis your potatoes, but say something like a common pest issue. You're going to know, you're going to see it. You kind of lift up a leaf, and it's easier to lift up and look under leaves when they're right in front of your face. So this way you can see that. You might notice, these leaves are yellowing or curling or look spotted or whatever. And since you're like walking through your garden, it's literally at eye level, you're going to see it.
And you can trellis pole beans, peas. You need trellis; they're very weak stemmed. Cucumbers. You can actually trellis zucchini. And you can do some smaller squashes. You could do some fruits. Jelly melons can be trellised. Those are a unique vegetable. So anything, there is some limitations to what you can trellis. In those limitations, you can add assistance to those fruits or vegetables in order to support them as the plant and the fruit is developing. You can put netting underneath them and hang a fence post with netting.
We had a squash. What was that thing? A squash 3D trellis?
A shelf trellis.
Shelf trellis. That's what we called it. Yeah, and it was like basically a four-sided trellis.
It was like a racking in a warehouse.
Yeah.
Two layers that was 4 foot by 4 foot, a ground on the ground, a second layer 2 foot up, and a third layer at 3 foot up. There's some videos way old on the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com website there, and it worked well. We grew several Cinderella pumpkins out of self-watering tubs that grew up and sat on the shelf itself or the trellis itself. And I think they were 15 or 20 pounds. We canned them and did the whole thing with them. Yeah. But it was a unique thing that I made out of lumber or limbs that had been trimmed or cut that were going to get thrown away, and some scrap rubber-coated fencing. It lasted about 4 years, and nature took its course, and it rotted, and we moved on. But it was a unique way in order to support large vegetables, large pumpkins.
Yeah, so you can get creative, or like Joy mentioned, you can use some netting. You can even like go and buy some pantyhose, some cheap pantyhose, and use those to support some squash. So you have options to support the squash, and you could still grow it up onto a trellis. Which
prevents a lot of rot issues, because most of these things, if they're sitting on the ground, cucumbers, muskmelon, cantaloupe, there was the same thing, honeydew, watermelon, they're sitting on the ground. Yeah. And they're susceptible to anything under the ground, mice, rats, worms, slugs, whatever that can get in there, squirrels, raccoons, that can get in there and devour it or greatly damage what you're trying to grow. So trellising, if you've never looked at it, you can be very creative. Just go on your favorite search engine and type in DIY garden trellis, and you'll have hours of entertainment looking at things and how to modify what you have or create something unique for your personal backyard.
Well, we are brought to you today by our sponsor, Walton's. We know you care about where your food comes from. Canning and preserving your fruits and vegetables is great, but what about the meat? At Walton's, you can get all the equipment, seasoning, and supplies to make sausage, jerky, and any other meat product your way to your high standards. Do you want to make snack sticks that people will actually like? Walton's created meatgistics.com, an informational site to help you make the best finished product. Walton's even has a full line of their own meat grinders, mixers, and sausage stuffers to help you go from animal to edible. Walton's, everything but the meat. You can use code GROW50, that's GROW50 at waltonsinc.com to save 10% off your orders of $50 or more.